Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining. Welcome to Azure Data Protection with Veeam session. It is a regular session that we tend to do with Eric every other week or so, but unfortunately today he couldn't join us. He he had a good excuse because he had become a father of two little girls. So this is my opportunity to kind of to do work without him, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he's having a good time right now. So anyways, it is a live session. I'm going to do it for you. My name is AZ. I'm technologist for product strategy here at Veeam. And yeah, obviously I've got a couple of slides to show because, well, who doesn't want to have slides? And I've got a Veeam backup for Microsoft Azure demo. Again, the live demo, something that I'm going to show you guys how to set up this solution, how to configure it, how to use it, and how to make sure that your data in Azure is protected. All right, so again, whenever you need anything from me, just feel free to use the chat functionality or the questions Q&A panel over here, because I'm going to watch that and going to try to be as interactive as possible. Without further ado, let's talk about things that can happen in the cloud. And the first thing that could happen in the cloud, obviously, beside the happiness and everything, the data loss, unfortunately. Why is it important? Because we've been asking our customers, we as a data protection company, Veeam, what do their experience in the cloud? This is the question that we asked them. We conducted a survey, and then we were not really shocked by results, but we were kind of concerned about them because 40% of people told us something about the things related to user behavior. If if you think about that, it all makes sense because we all human, we make mistakes, and therefore you'll always hear those stories when someone went somewhere and deleted something that he wasn't supposed to delete, and things like that. Besides of that, there are a lot of obviously security threats related to ransomware activities, related to things like identities being not configured properly, and some other things. Obviously, I don't need to tell you about the retention policy gaps and some things related to compliance, because it is a huge topic these days. And sometimes people, backup administrators, they do not even remember, or they do not know that there are certain records or certain types of objects, data sets that has to be retained for longer than others, and for example medical records or bank accounts and something like that. So anyways, people time to time they seem to be surprised by things that they discovered within the cloud, and whenever that happens, they obviously go and ask the cloud provider. If you're talking about Azure, they ask Microsoft, hey, what about the backups? And obviously there are certain things, certain built-in tools like Azure Backup that are already again built in, but this is not enabled by default. And even if it is, sometimes they do not understand that there is a shared responsibility between what Microsoft in this case going to be responsible for and what the regular customer or consumer of the cloud services is going to be responsible for. And in case of Microsoft, they have a Microsoft shared responsibility model, something that you can see right now. They're going to take care about the physical things related to data center. They are going to replace their failed hard disk, or they are going to make sure that it's running 24/7. And whenever there is a power outage, they have another data center coming in, or all the workloads going to fail over there. But whenever you bring the data into the cloud, or whenever you set up the accounts or identities and do it not in a way that goes according to best practices, and you lose that data, they're not going to step up, most likely. And then they will tell you, hey, it is your data, you brought it there, and you should make sure that the data is available for you. We don't really care about that, and you can see the agreement over here. You can be mad about that, or you can do something about it. And we, as a data protection company, we have our own the portfolio of our products. And if we're talking about the cloud, the public cloud, and Microsoft Azure, AWS, GCP, we have the product for all of them, for each corresponding cloud. We call it Veeam Backup for public cloud. What it is exactly? It is, in this case, it is a tiny Linux appliance that is being installed inside of your account within your identity. You set it up, you configure it, and then you give it basically permission to oversee the data that you have over there, and then we perform the protection of multiple layers. Whenever I'm talking about that, I'm showing that we've got 3 layers of protection. If you think about that, it might be a little bit more than that. But the first layer of protection is to actually to make sure that there are snapshots of the virtual machines that are running in Azure or SQL databases, and then snapshots are taken and they're retained along those virtual machines. The second layer of protection would be to actually to use the different service and probably even different data storage mechanism. In this case, it's going to be Azure Blob. So we would export the data from the snapshot and we will store it into the Azure Blob container, which could be, again, maintained by yourself, encrypted and retained for as long as you want. The third layer of protection would be to actually to bring the data elsewhere, to get it out of cloud. And if you have a hybrid infrastructure, and a lot of customers that we talk to, they do have hybrid data centers, though they have on-premises environments. So the third layer would be to actually to bring the data from the cloud to on-premises, and then to decide whether you need to use yet another cloud, or you're going to just spin up a virtual machine inside of on-premises data center, and something that used to be a virtual machine running in Azure could be a virtual machine running on VMware host on premises. But regardless of that, the data should be available, and there should be whatever it is, either files or disks or the whole content of the whole virtual machine. You should be able to get it up and running in with less effort and in short time. Okay, so it's time to talk about Veeam Backup for Azure now, because this is the cloud-native solution. One of the other things that I previously shown you on the previous diagram, and I'm going to give you a kind of a sneak peek on what it is, and you should be aware of. It is a cloud-native solution. It was designed specifically for Azure. We have it as a solution that is policy-based, because it's up to you to basically create those policies to ensure that you've got all the resources, all the desired resources that needed to be protected inside of that policy, and then you can automate all the data protection cycle for them. Whenever we're talking about application consistency, obviously there are multiple things regardless of the nature of the operating system. Could be something for Windows, something for Linux, but just we have those abilities to make sure that the data, whenever it is protected, is taken in a consistent way. So it's not going to surprise you whenever you perform the data recovery. And speaking about data recoveries, kind of the second line here, we are huge on data recoveries because we provide various options, starting from the full recovery, going to the granular recovery of just the files that needed to be recovered, and ending up with instant recovery. Instant recovery is something that we use whenever the Azure VM becomes a regular virtual machine in on-premises data center. Could be VMware, could be Hyper-V, could be Nutanix, doesn't really matter. It just, we have an ability to run it right from the backup container without unpacking, without decompression and things like that. So it is a really powerful technology. Okay, with that, I'm going to go to my demo environment and to show you the solution, how it works. Again, just a small reminder, whenever you guys have any question, just feel free to share it with me via the, the Q&A functionality or the chat functionality, doesn't really matter. I'm trying to watch those. Okay, so let me start from Microsoft Azure, because I would really prefer you guys to take a look at that. What I'm going to do now is going to go to Marketplace, obviously, because this is the, this is the kind of a beginning of all the Azure related activities, right? And I'm going to actually to use the Zoom it so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So whenever I'm trying to perform data protection in Azure, I would come to Marketplace and search for Veeam options over here, right? So I've got 15 different results, and there is something I'm definitely interested in. Among other things, Veeam backup for Microsoft Azure Free Edition. Okay, this is something that we've got there. We also got the Bring Your Own License Edition, which might be helpful for those of you who have Veeam Universal License, because it would be really easy for you to get it applied. But then, for now, I'm going to start the Free Edition configuration, installation and configuration. Okay, let's not review the product documentation, but just click Create. Okay, so now it is really easy. I'm going to select the subscription that I need for my virtual machine. Then I'm going to select or pick the resource group that I have pre-created. I'm going to give this virtual machine a name, select the region, and if you have any Azure experience, you know how it is to basically to provision a regular virtual machine. So in case I'm going to do it fully, let's give it a friendly name, demo, region, availability zone, things like you could, if you have provisioned something, you already have the resource group and you already have the preferred region and things like that. So it would be really easy for you to follow this particular wizard. Yeah, at the end, here is the administrative account. This is something that I'm going to use later. So authentication type, whether I'm going to use the SSH or the passwords. I'm still using password these days, although I know it's kind of against best practices, but it's up to you guys. All right, and then the disk networking management advanced. I do not believe I do anything there in management or advanced. So it is basically the basic tab. As for the disks, I go for the standard SSD, which I'm going to delete with Veeam. I think I could even proceed to networking, and just trying to make sure that I've got the the network connectivity for my VM. So it's going to be placed into a virtual network I have already created, the subnet I already have, and yeah, that's that. Then I can come to management. I'm not going to do anything over there. Advanced, nothing already. There is probably a good practice to put a tag on my virtual machine. Not going to do that. And that's it. After that, I have to push review and create. And within a couple of minutes, the virtual machine is going to be configured and going to be among my virtual machines. So I'm not going to save it for now. And we'll show you that I have it configured. One of them is Veeam backup for Azure server. And what you can see here that I'm going to copy the public IP address and access it. So that was easy, right? The configuration itself. So I followed that IPv4 IP address, and then I appeared inside of Veeam backup for Microsoft Azure console. which is over here. You can see that I've got some alarms, instances protected and policies created and things like that. So this is the appliance that I've been using for some time, right? What you are going to see whenever you open it the first time, obviously, you'll see the configuration page because it will be the first time you access it, and obviously you need to configure that. What is really easy here is to see that I've got 3 checks over there and the 4th over here. So I have added Microsoft Azure account. I have reviewed the workers configuration, or basically created it, added repository, and now I can create my first backup policy. What do I mean by that? Microsoft Azure account, that is something kind of an identity of this application that is going to be accessing my data set on behalf of me, right? So it's going to be seeing the virtual machines and the SQL instances that I need to protect. So that would be really easy, because what you're going to do is to actually this file for me, but never mind that. So you're going to to create a service account or create an application, and the procedure would be kind of a really easy. I will try to renew the application just to to show you how it would look like. And then you put the code inside of it, and then you pick up the account you're using. So that was it. All right, not going to continue it for now. Step 2, okay, don't mind that. Step 2, whenever I perform any operation within the the certain region. Oh, I didn't seem to have a connection right now. Interesting. No. Okay, there's something wrong with my VM. Let's make sure I can access it. Once again, most likely I need to to stop it and to run again, which I'm going to do right now. Well, it is a live session, guys. Sometimes it doesn't really work according to your expectations. But I'm going to continue and to tell you while I'm restarting this particular virtual machine. The second thing I would do there is to create a worker. And what I mean by worker is the kind of a temporary proxy that is going to be spun up and and destroyed whenever any backup or recovery iteration happen. So for us, it is a way to scale the operations up, because imagine the policy when you have, I don't know, like 1 virtual machine, and then on the other hand, you could be having like 10 or 100 or 1,000 virtual machines, and then you would be obviously overloading the server, Veeam Backup for Azure, and you don't want to do that. So we use the temporary workers to handle the traffic coming from the source where the data is, and kind of processing the data and storing it into the backup repository, the backup target. So this is a way for us to actually make sure that that application is scalable. So with that, should be it for the workers. And then the repositories. I have already mentioned that we are using Azure Blob as a repository for for data storage. And what I mean by that, actually, I'm going to go to the storage account. I'm pretty sure that I'm using this particular storage account, and let's go and access my containers over here. So you guys, you can see what's happening. So what you can see that I've got 4 different folders inside of my container, or actually it is a container. But then, yeah, if I click on VBA folder, VBA container, you'll see that I've got the Veeam backup and a couple of folders that I use. So it is a demo with different tier accesses. And so it is the place where my data comes, whenever I protect the virtual machines and the SQL databases over there. All right, seems like I'm at track. Yeah, so let's come back to the configuration and the repository, and let's see the number of repositories that I've got. What you can see here, 6 different ones within 2 different containers and 6 different folders, obviously. So yeah, you can, whenever the repository created, you can go ahead and configure the backup policy and then point that backup policy into that repository, or the desired one that you want to have. All right, that's basically it for the configuration. So I'm going to exit and go to the policies. Let's see if I've got any of them. All right, I've got one which has errored out. Oh, but it seems to be that my license is invalid right now. Yeah, I know what the problem is. Just not going to fix it while we speak, but that wouldn't stop me from showing what the policy is and how I can get it working. So basically, there are a couple of steps over there. If you take a look at them, yeah, you'll start from sources, where you'll select the region where you need to protect the data, and then you would be able to pick up the resources. And what we mean by resources is basically the number of virtual machines or the SQL databases. But then this policy is for the virtual machines, so it's going to be there. As for the targets, as for the targets, there you'll have to select the backup repository, something that we have already created, and then this is the way to point the policy onto the backup repository. And then you'll be able to schedule it the way you want, daily, weekly, monthly schedule, all the way you want. The schedule for the backups and for the snapshots, and whenever those 2 are taken in particularly, could be different, because we tend to recommend to have the snapshots as frequent as possible, or people prefer to have 1 snapshot per hour or something. And for the backups, it could be a kind of a daily operation with data coming there at the end of the day, something like that. Okay, let's see if I've got any of those. Yeah, just wanted to make sure that you guys you can see that I've got like 2 different tabs. One of them is for virtual machines, and another one is for Azure SQL, obviously, because there could be SQL databases, managed instances, and SQL servers also protected with those policies, and that is inside of that tab. And whenever those iterations happen, we have the kind of a nice cost estimator, which would in real time would give you an estimation on how much you're going to pay for this particular policy to be running for a month. And obviously it's not from us, it's from all the costs associated to Azure resources consumed, because you will be retaining snapshots, you will be retaining data in the backups and things like that. So we have this functionality as well. Yet another tab over here is protected data, where I can see my data that is, that was already protected, and now I can recover it. I'm going to click on any recovery point, for example. Okay, for example, this one doesn't really matter, but the recovery options as follow: a full VM recovery, disk recovery, and file level recovery. I'm going to click on file level recovery just to show you how the iteration would look like. And basically that's that. You pick up the recovery point, and then you click on the file level recovery wizard, and you click on start. So what we're going to do is to mount that snapshot into the console and show you the contents of the snapshot, and then you're going to pick up the data that you need to recover. So that's that. And the same would be for Azure SQL. Again, recovery points of various databases over here. You can see that I've got 7 of them. Yeah, and a bunch of recovery points. And that should be kind of easy to understand, right? And then restore the database. All right, and probably the last thing I'm going to mention here is the third step of multi-layer protection, something that I was talking about previously. I'm going to show you a kind of a different console right now. Let me cancel that. Okay, you might be confused for a moment because I'm showing different consoles, but hear me out. This is Veeam backup and replication. This is a different console. I know that. However, if you have a Azure environment and you're Azure only, that's fine. You can use Veeam backup for Azure all the way you want, protect it the way you want, and everything will be here. However, if you have a hybrid environment, and a lot of companies tend to have them these days, they will be obviously looking for a way to to unite all of those various environments all together somewhere, someplace. And here it is. This is Veeam backup and replication. This is kind of a combiner of all of those various platforms that could be united in terms of data protection, if we're talking about Veeam solutions. So whenever, and by the way, the Veeam backup and replication is typically deployed. It is a Windows application and being typically deployed on premises. So this is my regular virtual machine running in my data center, and it was, deployed as a Windows operating system machine. And then I've got the application configured over here, and then I can navigate to my backup infrastructure, which is over here, and you can see that I've got, plenty of those things like vSphere centers, Hyper-V hosts, and then some of the things related to AWS, to Azure, GCP, so, bunch of things. I guess where I'm going with that, if I click on Microsoft Azure, and I clicked on Ready, what you can see here is the Microsoft Azure backup plans, something that I have deployed over there in the cloud. And because I did that, and because I have connected to it, after the first rescan, it rescanned all the things that I've got there, related to the backup of virtual machines and the SQL databases. And now, under the external repository node, you can see here that I've got a couple of things associated with Microsoft Azure over here. Okay, now it doesn't really work, but trust me, I'm going to actually open them up. What you can see, it is my Linux server that I was protecting within the cloud. The data is still in the cloud. However, I'm operating from this on-premises application, and I can see that this particular data. I can even right-click on it. I can bring this data to on-prem. That would be really easy for me to copy it here. I can even recover it to different cloud if I want to, talking about AWS and GCP over here. Or I can recover it instantly and provision a vSphere virtual machine or Hyper-V virtual machine, doesn't really matter. The most important point is that data is available for me. Well, the data is in the cloud, but I can bring it to on-premises or to any other cloud with a couple of clicks. So this is one of the good perks about this solution. All right, with that, I think I have covered most of the points that I wanted to, and I'm going to come back to the slides. Yeah, because obviously this session was intended to be for half an hour, and I know we're at the end of the time. So just wanted to make sure that if you have any questions, we have a dedicated team of people that sit behind this particular email address, public.cloud@veeam.com. So we have a bunch of people who will be willing to talk to you whenever you have anything to talk about, obviously related to public cloud solutions and hopefully to data protection of the public cloud workloads. So yeah, feel free to email them and to continue conversation with them, because it's kind of their job at the end of the day. So yeah, with that, I would like to thank all of you for coming. This was a nice and short introduction of Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure, and I hope you liked it. Yeah, so thank you again. Thank you for staying. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Thank you.